We live in the most connected time in world history. Yet, as a society, we are as isolated as we have ever been. People are starved for unpretentious relationships, abiding connections, and shared purpose. There is something in us that longs for the type of connection that we have when we sit at a meal with those that we love. And this is what life in community is all about. The power of the gospel-centered communities in a lonely world. A community marked by the Spirit and moved by the gospel. A community that brings with it the hope that our lonely world is in search of. This is God's track record from Genesis to now. Community is more than a Sunday, and mission is more than a trip. Rediscover the power of gospel-centered community. It might just change your life and those around you. Let's join together and display the gospel.
We started a series last week, and are you having a hard time? I know, I'm crying too. You having a hard time understanding me? Hold on, let me take this off. So we started this series last week, and we're talking about community. Are you distracted? Is this hard? Is this creeping you out a little bit? Okay, hold on. So we started this series last week on community, and I feel like something is still setting us apart right now. Is it for you? Yeah, okay, hold on. Let me take this off. Yeah. And let me put this down to switch because I'm not this guy. There we go. So we started this series on life and community because one of our core values at this church is authentic community. And what we talked about last week was the need that each and every one of us has for community. Whether you're a Christian or not a Christian, and I'm prayerful that there are people here today that don't know Christ because you've been invited by someone that does. But each and every one of us has this burning desire to be in community with other people. And it's evident in just what we're doing today with Tailgate. You know, we just say, hey, wear your favorite team's apparel. And some people are wearing good teams, like the 1988 national champion Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This is not a Green Bay jersey, just so you know. This is Joe Montana, or Joe Montana. But we all have this connection. Some of you didn't wear anything, and some of you are like, sports are stupid and a waste of money. You're right, but we still love them. Other people, like Randy was wearing her Grace Kids shirt. That's a team that she belongs to. Some of you are wearing baseball or whatever it might be. We all have this thing that we connect to a community, and it may be work. You have a community at work that you belong to, and so the idea that we all have this created, designed need for community is clear. It shows up in our lives regardless of whether we're religious or not. And so that's what we talked about last week. And we did talk about the fact that we believe as Christians that God designed us to have community. He made us so that we did life together, that circles are better than rows, and that God himself is in community, the Trinity. He's a Trinitarian God of the Bible, and he is in community. Jesus is in community with the Father, and so he created us in his image, and we have this need to be in community because as lonely and lonesome and strong and independent as you might be, at some point on your journey, you will have a desire or a desperate need to be in connection, even if it's just simple friendship with other people. And for us, we believe in doing that intentionally. We believe that you were designed to be an authentic community, and we want everybody that is a part of this faith community to be an authentic community. Now, that's God's part of this. He designed it, he made it. And I teased this last week, is that though God created us with that design, we do have a part to play in this. And it's kind of a difficult part, honestly. It's being real, right? Because when it comes to community, there are no masks allowed. You and I live in community in these different circles where we wear these masks, and it's distancing us from other people. I walk out here in the Black Panther mask, and automatically you are like, this is a strange church. You knew that already. But there's has Philip finally lost it? Like Brogan and Ward are gone, he's gone over the edge finally. Like this is 4 years and a few months, right? But there is, in your small group, in your workplace, in your team, in your classroom, if you put on a mask, you automatically distance yourself from the people that you're with. You put a barricade, a hurdle between actual connectivity between you and those people. And we have different masks for different people, right? We have the people that are closest to us that we only cover up a few things. We only hide a few things of our life. And we have some other people that we have a little farther out that we don't want them too close, but we want them a little closer. We want them to see a little bit of ourselves. And then we have people that we full on cover up. They don't know anything about the real us. And you know what? We're good at this. We are really, really good at this mask-wearing thing. But we weren't designed to do that. I believe that's a part of sin in us. I believe that when it comes to community, that honesty is one of the greatest means of fostering biblical community. Honesty is one of the greatest means of fostering biblical community. Now, why I say biblical community? Because that's what we're doing here. Our efforts at being in community with each other are not founded in just our need for attention. They're founded in God's ordained creative design of our lives. And so when we talk about community and biblical community, that's what we're efforting. We're efforting the community that God has commanded us, God has designed us to live in. And being honest with each other is one of the greatest paths to that actually happening in your life. And just think about it. You know, whether it's a spouse or a friend or whoever it is, when you started to be genuine with that person, your connection, your relationship, your friendship went to new levels and new depths, really. And this is all stuff you know. But when it comes to intentional, structured community in our lives, we're not as honest with people. One of my favorite pastors, Pete Wilson, said this. He said that community without honesty is just artificial harmony. Community without honesty is artificial harmony. And you've experienced this at work, right? Like, you are not honest with the boss. You do not tell him what an idiot he is and how if they would just put you in charge, you would fix all the problems in the company. But you are at peace with that boss. You have artificial harmony. Or maybe it's a neighbor that you can't stand. You're like, how you doing? Fine. Biggest lie we tell ourselves, right? I think women tell it more because you say, I'm fine, and you've never meant that ever, not one day in your life. Gentlemen, if you're young and you don't know this yet, I'm fine means you better figure out what you did wrong, okay? Or what somebody else did wrong and fix it. Cook dinner, wash dishes, do whatever you have to, okay? But we do it too, guys. We do it. Like, how's your day, man? Oh, good, good, good. That's what we do. Instead of I'm fine, we just repeat the word good. Oh, we're good, good, good. Yeah, good, 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 good. I'm going to run now, right? But we're not honest with people, but we're at peace in those relationships. And sometimes we sacrifice honesty and actual community for artificial harmony. But eventually that wears off, doesn't it? Eventually we get tired of the fakeness. We get tired of these fake relationships, this how you doing, Tiger, you know, the Facebook connection. Oh, I'm so glad that you're doing that, when secretly you're not glad at all. You wish you were going to Disney World, right? All those kind of things. Let's be honest. I want to go. I actually offered to jump in someone's suitcase this past week and leave my family to go to Disney World. And I was only half joking. But this is the part that we play in community. We have got to figure out how to be honest. Because over and over and over again, we consistently choose hypocrisy over honesty. And the reason we say hypocrisy is because that's exactly what we're doing. We're being hypocrites. We're saying one thing and living another. We're saying we're good while secretly we are struggling. We're saying that we're friends, but in reality, we're gossiping the crap out of them. We choose consistently hypocrisy over honesty. And one of the stories that, in case you're wondering where a lot of this content comes from, A, the Bible, and B, this book, Life and Community by Dustin Willis, he tells this story about this young lawyer who was setting up shop, right? You know, he's first out on his own, finished school and all that stuff, starting his own deal. And he sets up shop, and he's in this rented facility, And he's got his stuff in there, and he's just getting set up, and he sees somebody that's about to walk in. So he grabs the phone, like off the hook, and he's like starts talking, and he gives the guy the finger, like, hey, hang on just a minute, I'll be with you in just a minute. I'm really busy, right? And just totally faking the whole time. Okay, yeah, I'll put that down on my calendar, and I'll have to get back to you. I'll have to work through that. Okay, all right, thanks. And he hangs up, and he goes, how can I help you? And the gentleman says, I'm from the phone company. I'm here to set your line up. But we've done that. Maybe not in that specific case. We have faked it with people, and they know, like they know we're being fake. They know the story. And this is what we're doing, and this is what we've been doing since the beginning of creation. As soon as Adam and Eve partook of the tree that they weren't supposed to, 3 things came into play in our lives, and they've been running rampant ever since. Those 3 things are shame, hiding, and blame. They were ashamed that they were naked. They hid themselves from the Lord. And they blamed each other. And then Adam one-upped it and blamed God. The woman you put here gave me the fruit. Like, man, the guts that guy had. I mean, they were the original guts, but still, the guts that guy had. The woman you put here, blame me. So shame, hiding, and blame. And we do this, don't we? Whether it's in small group or work or classrooms or friendships, we are ashamed of the things that are true about us that we're not happy with. And so we hide them behind masks, and then we blame circumstances and other people for them. Have you ever met the person that it's never, ever, ever, ever their fault, right? Like, no, you crashed your car into a telephone pole. Yeah, but they should not have put that telephone pole there. That is a bad place for it. Or they got speeding ticket in the school zone. Like, well, they should have cut the grass or the trees because I couldn't even read the speed limit sign. Like, dude, you were in front of the school going 55. Like, you met those people. It's never their fault, but we do that. That's our response to a sinful world. It's our response to God telling us to be in community. We choose hypocrisy, and because we're hypocritical, we are ashamed of it. We hide ourselves behind our masks, and we blame the other people or the other circumstances in our lives for what's going on. Now, thankfully, Scripture gives us clear next steps in this sinful condition that you and I live in when it comes to being in community. It's found in Romans chapter 12 in one single verse. If you have a Bible, I'd love for you to turn to Romans 12. And I'm going to read it from 2 different translations to show you 2 different things because I think it's amazing what happens here. And it's Romans 12 in the ESV, the English Standard Version, which is what I typically teach from each week. But verse 9 in chapter 12 of Romans, this is Paul, the Apostle Paul, who was once a Christian hunter and had his life radically changed by God, and he had to prove his honesty to the disciples, to the apostles. When he first came and said, hey, I'm not hunting you anymore, I want to be a part of your club, I want to be in your community, they were like, nope, I don't believe you. And he had to learn what it was to be honest and be accepted into this community. So he says this to other believers in Rome who are living under persecution. In verse 9 of chapter 12, we read this. It says, let love be genuine, abhor what is evil, hold fast to what is good. And that word genuine, the ESV is translated from the Greek. So we're going to get a little bit of a Bible lesson here today. And the word genuine right there is this word in Greek. I think we're going to put this up there for you. It's anipokritis. Okay, and that's the word we get hypocrite from. It's actually no hypocrite. He's saying, let your love be genuine. Let it not be hypocritical. And the imagery that he's using here for that context is actors who would literally put on masks because there's not enough actors. And so they would play one part and then they'd put on a mask and they'd become another character in the same story. And Paul is saying, let your love be genuine. Don't let it be hypocritical. Don't be covered in a mask. Don't try to be someone else. But in the NIV version, the New International Version, it's translated from the Latin translation from the original text. So it goes from Greek through Latin to English. And it's beautiful what this translation says. And I think it applies to our conversation today, so I wanted to read it as well. And this is the NIV. It says, love must be sincere. Hate what is evil, cling to what is good.
And that word sincere is made up of two Latin words, sin meaning without, and cera meaning wax. And the imagery here is in that time frame, if they had a bowl or a pot or a cup or whatever, and it had cracks, maybe it cracked during the heating process or whatever, they would put wax in those cracks and then buff out the imagery and then paint it so you didn't know that you were actually buying a cracked piece of pottery. But if you held it to the light, you could see through the wax. The light would permeate somewhat through the wax, but not the rest of the bowl. And you could see that it was cracked. It was not fully. And what Paul there is saying from the Latin perspective is, be without wax, be without blemish, be without these cracks. Don't present yourself as a fraud to the community that you're in, which I think is exactly what we need to hear today, because that's what we do. We walk in this morning and we're trying to make everyone else think that we're okay. And gosh, I love the honesty from Kendra this morning, just saying, it's been a rough morning. Because some of us are there, man. Like it's not just been a rough morning, it was a rough night, it was a rough week. It's been 2018 can go on a walk, right? Some of us feel that way. Yet there's this thing that when we come to gather and worship, that we're supposed to be all happy and like, well, Jesus is alive, so I'm supposed to be happy. Let's sing, right? That's not real. But at the same time, we don't watch you walking in here like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, like, hi guys, I had a bad week again. Nobody wants to be around you, Eeyore. It's somewhere in between those two that we're supposed to live, because that's accepting all the evil and wrong and not taking any hope in Christ. And this is hypocritical, and it's not genuine, it's not sincere. And we're supposed to live lives of honesty. And in that honesty, we're supposed to find Jesus. And there are some basic benefits of truth in community. And we're going to rattle these off for you. If you're in a small group, you're going to walk through these this week in your small group. We're going to put this in Andrew sent it to the small group leaders. And if you don't have, if you're not in a small group, you should go and get one after service today. But if you're still not there, you can get one of these leader guides at the host table today and walk through it with you and your family. But here are the benefits to truth in community. Number one, truth allows people to know you. If you're never honest, if you're never real with the people in your life, they don't actually know you. That's why when somebody goes off the deep end, we all go, I never saw it coming. Because you didn't actually know them. They didn't let you know them. They weren't being truthful with you. Some of us are there. Some of us have had some dark nights of the soul where we've thought about some things that are tragic and terrible, and it would catch our family off guard because we're not letting them know where we really are. Truth allows people to know you. Truth also allows people to love you. I mean, perfect example of this is romantic relationship, where like you think you like somebody, but then you get to know them and you realize you hate them, right? Like Jerry Seinfeld was beautiful about this on a completely hyperbolic way. He would find something wrong with every girl he ever dated, like the girl who ate peas with a fork, like individually, right? Truth allows people to know you, and then once you know someone, you actually have an opportunity to love the person they are. And until you're honest with people, they can't love you. They can't truly love you. Truth allows people to pray for you. How on earth are you supposed to pray for someone if you don't know who they are or what they're struggling with? And then finally, truth allows people to help you. If we don't know you, if I haven't had an opportunity to love you, if I haven't had an opportunity to pray for the struggles that you're walking through, how on earth can I help you in those struggles? Whether they're financial or health or relational or whatever it might be. We can't be the church that you're searching for unless you know what struggles you've had with church community. Because a lot of us have ended up at this church because we've been beat up, chewed up, and spit out by other churches. Present company included. I've explained GCC to a lot of people as saying, well, we're just a bunch of misfits that wind up in the same place at the same time each week. But we can't be the church that God intended for you to find until you let us know what it is that you're working through. These are the benefits of truth in community. And the danger is thinking that honesty is the answer, right? Honesty, if I'm just honest with people, then finally they're going to accept me. And finally I'm going to be in community. And here's the thing. Honesty alone isn't the answer. It's a massive part of creating community, but it's not the answer to all of our issues in community. Because I think that's a sermon that the culture is preaching, right? We can say whatever we want to say, feel however we want to feel, post whatever we want to post, and hashtag it with, I'm just being real. And we're supposed to be accepted and forgiven for whatever it was that we did or whoever it was that we hurt. I'm just being real. No, you're just being hurtful. You're not just being honest, you're being a jerk. And so honesty alone is not the answer to all of these things. I've heard that from so many people. For the believer, and again, if you're not a Christian, I don't have this same expectation of you, and neither should any other Christian. But if you are a Christian, if you are a person who has claimed to surrender his or her life to Jesus, that he has died on your behalf for your sins, and you've surrendered everything to him, for the believer, honesty must be accompanied by sanctification in order to be an authentic follower of Christ. Honesty must be accompanied by sanctification in order to be an authentic follower of Christ. And that word sanctification simply means that God is taking the old you and taking the sinful junk out and creating someone who looks more and more like him every day. We are justified by faith through Christ in his death and resurrection. We have been made blameless in the sight of God for salvation. But in this life that we're living, we're in the process of sanctification. We are being made more and more like Jesus every day. And if you're not, then you need to go back to the justification issue. But honesty must be accompanied by this process of becoming more like Jesus each and every day. And this can be found in Ephesians chapter 4. And we're going to put this on the screen if you don't want to jump around in Scripture, because sometimes it's annoying when pastors do that. But just a couple of verses here I want to read to you. This is in verse 22 of chapter 4 starting. It's kind of in the middle of a phrase, but I want to point three things out in this section because this helps us know what we're supposed to do with honesty and in community. Ephesians chapter 4. This is Paul speaking again to believers in the city called Ephesus. And he says this in verse 22. That we're to put off your old self, which belongs to your former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and to be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and to put on the new self created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. There's three things there that are very simple for the believer, that as we approach community with Jesus, and as we approach community with God's people, right? That's what we say here every week at GCC, that we are here, we exist to guide people in relationship with Jesus and each other. And so in order to be in community with Jesus, deeper community with Jesus and God's people, we have to do three things, according to Paul. We have to put off the old self. And this is a process that will only be completed when we meet Jesus, okay? Understand that. This putting off of the old self, for me, it's every Saturday in the fall because I cheer for a team that doesn't know how, until yesterday, to win games by large margins. And here's why that's terrible. I don't bring that up just to talk about my team, even though they're 4-0. I thought I'd put that out there as well. But here's what that causes. It causes sin in me to treat the people who I love and who are closest to me poorly. I get frustrated with my kids standing in front of the TV. It's a freaking football game. I haven't met a single one of those people in real life. Yet I'm irritated with my kids, my family, that I spend every day with. That's terrible. Hear me, fam. I hear it. I hear myself also saying these things. Okay, I'm working on it. But this putting off of the old self, it's all those sinful desires. It's the desire to look at things online. It's the desire to speak ugly words to people. It's the desire to cut people off in traffic. It's the desire to eat crappy things. Y'all, the other night, I was coming home late after working late, and I literally had to talk myself out of, and I wish I were making this up. I had to talk myself out of stopping at Chick-fil-A, Sonic, and Krispy Kreme because it's just been that kind of a week that I wanted to medicate with food because that's what I do. I eat my feelings. I'm a bored eater and a feelings eater, which is really, really bad. It's a bad combination. But even that is putting off the old self, because what I should be doing in those circumstances is saying, God, will you fill me with hope? Will you give me the strength I need to endure this difficulty, or help me to clear my mind of these things that are inconsequential and ultimately don't matter, that are bugging me so much? I should be running to Jesus instead of sugary, glaze-covered donuts. But it's what we do because it's easy and it's there. And we feel crappy after doing it because the problem doesn't go away. We've just created a new one. So that's putting off the old self. Secondly, be made new in the attitude of your mind, in the spirit of your mind. Like, this isn't just like I need to learn more, or I need to go see a psychic so I can clear my mind, or tap a coffee cup or something, right? I need to pursue Jesus mentally. I need to meditate, which I know is like a bad word in church. Like, isn't that what New Age people do? Are you telling me I should take up yoga and do Om things? No, I'm not saying that. Okay, you can do yoga. That's not a sin, by the way, depending on your church background. I think some people think that yoga is like some cultic thing, and then they put goats in there, and then they have images of the pentagram, like what's going on, and I don't know. They're like chickens running around without heads, and I don't know. But being made new in the attitude of our mind is this. It's achieved by pursuing Christ privately and publicly. Because I think we're really easy about coming publicly and pursuing Christ, but privately, when it's not convenient, when we don't get the feels from music or people around us. And God is going to use the people around me more than any other influence to help me rethink the way I'm living. And you've experienced that. God will use the people around you to influence you more than anything else in the way you're living. Because some of you have seen that work itself out in a sinful way, right? You've made some bad choices because of the people you're around. But some of you had this unique example in your own lives of being around some people, whether it was small group or church or whatever, maybe just neighbors or friendships, that actually challenged your positions on things and encouraged you to think differently about subjects. And I'll just give you an example. Somebody once upon a time pushed back on some of my political thoughts because I'm a Christian and I'm a pastor, so of course I don't believe that abortion is okay in any sense at all. And I know there's all kinds of different things, but the ending of a life without that life, that's just not okay. And so they said, well, how can you say that's okay, but the death penalty is okay? And so they pushed back, and they weren't trying to shove me. They weren't trying to change my mind on something. They were just posing a question. And I decided privately in my relationship with Jesus that if I'm not okay with somebody ending a life, if the government can't end a life in this way, then I can't be okay with the government ending a life in this way. And listen, I'm not saying that that's Bible. That's Philip opinion. That's how God used the people around me to renew the thinking of my mind. And it can be as heavy as that, and it can be as simple as the way you eat. Changing your mind about how much sugar intake or caffeine intake. I mean, God will use these people to help you privately and publicly in the renewing of the attitude of your mind. And then finally, put on the new self. And this is where we learn new practices. This is where we build new habits to honor God. And it's always easier to build new habits and practices when you're in a group. You know how, I'm not going to do that. But if I asked you to raise your hand, how many of you have a gym membership, I would be curious to how many of you would also be able to raise your hand if you've been to that gym this week. Because I couldn't raise my hand both times. But you're far more likely to go to the gym if you're meeting someone there, right? You're far more likely to go run and run farther. It's physically proven that you can run farther with a group than you can by yourself. And this is part of God's process of putting on the new self, is these building habits and practices that honor God, and they happen easiest when you're doing it with a group of people who are also pursuing Him. Now, I want to go back to the whole genuine and sincere discussion, because this is what I think is beautiful about God. Because if you just came this morning and you heard me saying, don't wear masks and you can't be a cracked pot, and you're thinking, well, strike out. Like, what's strike three? Because I'm batting 0 right now. Because that's when God steps into this. It's when God steps into this beautiful picture. And what happens in the process of authentic community is that we remove our masks. We reveal our cracks and our blemishes. And God uses community to do something amazing in us. See, our flaws are a part of our story. Our failures, our difficulties, our insecurities, they're a part of our story. We will never be able to completely eliminate them. We will never be able to click delete as if they were never there. They're a part of us. But God steps in through his beautiful work and oftentimes through his work in community to create something new. And I want to tell you something that I saw that is a perfect example of this. There is an art called kintsugi. And here's what they do. Just before you put that picture up, they make something, they make a pot or a cup or whatever, and then they break it. And then they put it back together and fill the cracks in with gold. Show that picture, Taylor. This is what we are, church. We're a bunch of broken vessels that God is beautifully putting back together with precious precision and beautiful work through community. If you think you can't be a part of this thing because you're broken or you're not there yet, let me take the pressure off. None of us are. But this is what God is interested in doing with your life. And it just may be that God is going to use the people around you, the intentional groups that you place yourself in to accomplish this. This is who we are. This is the beauty of authentic community. And if you're wondering if God does want you to, like you're sitting there like, I don't know, man. I don't know if God's telling me to get into a group. Let me go ahead and give you the answer. He does want you to get in a group. Let me speak on the behalf of God on high. He wants you in a small group. You know how I can say that? Because of this. Now, does he want you in a GCC small group? I can't go that far. But he wants you in community with other people because he designed you for it. Some of you college students are in Catalyst groups. That's awesome. Fully endorse it. Some of y'all are in BSF. Some of you ladies are in BSF. Fully endorse it. Great, awesome. But some of you are floating along, busy with life, struggling, and feeling lonely. And when you are around people on Sunday morning or whenever else it is, you're just loading up on the masks. And you're not feeling, and you're not experiencing what God meant for you to experience in authentic community. Because we're designed to live in community on mission. Sometimes that mission is right inside that living room, praying for each other, caring for each other. Let me pray for us. Jesus, thank you so much for loving us and giving us this day. And I pray, Lord, that you would help each and every one of us to be honest with ourselves, that we would begin evaluating how truthful we're being to the people in our lives. And you give us the courage to step into some circles that we can start revealing our cracks and taking off our masks. And Lord, that you would begin that beautiful process of making us new. Lord, thank you so much that you do beautiful things with broken people. Now, Lord, help us to be a place, a group of people, a church that rallies around each other for your glory. We pray this in your name. Amen.